Hi there, this is Ronnie coming at you with a video. Another set of board game reviews for the most part. These are games that are linked by being film or TV tie-ins. So I have 5 of them. I have Ivor The Engine, the Monty Python version of Flux, Princess Bride, I Hate to Kill You, QIXL, the board game, and Star Trek 5-Year Mission. Now, these are not all the games based on TV and film licenses that I have. But there is a reason why I have not put the others in. First of all, I do have the Game of Thrones board game, but that's really more influenced by the books than the TV show. And even if I were to split hairs on that one, it's more, I want to do a video on some of the sort of big conquest games that I have, and I feel that Game of Thrones fits better in there. Similarly, The Godfather Corleone's Empire, which is very much based on the first movie, is one that is a sort of really involved worker placement game, and I want to do a section of reviews of worker placement games I've got, and I feel it's a better fit for that. And as I want to do my horror games for sort of Halloween, I'm going to hold off on Buffy until I do those. So that's the reason those 3 games, even though I do own them, even though they are sort of TV film tie-ins, they are not on this list. Again, I filmed these with my camera, so the image might stutter a bit every now and again. Also, whilst I've played the rest, well, I haven't played Monty Python Fluxx, but I've played Flux, the sort of regular one. I've not yet played QIXL, which I do mention in the video. So that one is more of an overview. Rather than a review, just my sort of initial thoughts on it. But I hope you will enjoy the video, and thank you very much for watching. This is Ivor The Engine, which is based on the much beloved sort of animated series here in the UK. It was set in the sort of small hills and vales of Wales, which is why some of the place names here are in Welsh, and quite frankly, I can't pronounce them properly, and I refuse to insult the people of Wales by attempting to pronounce some of these names, so I'm not going to. I'm not that bad. I'm not good at pronouncing names. Some of them I can pronounce because they're in English, but a lot of them in Welsh. This is a lovely little game, and I will briefly go over the turns. Starting with the first player, who gets this lovely little Ivor The Engine token. The first thing you do is, wherever you happen to be, and at the moment we are here in there, yep. And the first thing you do is take a sheep. Now, this brings me on to the thing about the sheep. These are the official come with the game, and these represent a flock of 5 sheep. This is your pen where you put all the sheep. The object of the game is to get sheep. In a 3 or 4 player game, you are trying to get 25 sheep. In a 5 player game, you're trying to get 20. These represent 5 sheep. Now, the guy who introduced this game to me thought they were a little less than thematic, and I agree. So like him, I found somewhere selling bigger sheep. And I use these to represent 5 sheep. So anyway, once you've taken a sheep from your location, you may move. You can move to the next location, providing it's not blocked off by one of these darker lines. You can move to the next location quite happily, providing no one else is there. No, you can't have two carriages in the same location. So you can move, but for an extra coal, you can go an extra location. So I'm looking at my cards here. He kind of wants to stay where he is, actually. So he does. He wants to stay there. And he's not going to play a card for reasons that will become apparent. Instead, he's going to take a card. Now, your maximum hand size is 4. And worse than when you're discarding, if you find yourself with more than 4 cards, not only do you discard down to 4, you also have to put back some of your sheep. So it becomes a bit more fraught to get sheep. So turn comes to the orange player. And the orange player is immediately going to go like that and place the sheep in there. Now, the action cards that you can play. Orange is not going to move as well for a very specific reason. The action card has 2 parts. You have the job. In order to complete the job, you have to be at that location, and there can be no sheep in that location. And if you're there, you can put in this card and get that many sheep. Or you can play this as an action. Now, in my case, I am at Pew's farm. There is no sheep because I just took it. So I'm going to complete that job. Which gives me 3 sheep, which I will collect from the supply. And then I could pick up another card if I so wish, and turn goes around until such times as someone gets the sheep, all the sheep that they need. You can use gold to buy event cards or to buy extra coal, so you can do extra moves. If you use coal to move your wagon, you can move through a location where there's another player. In fact, it's one of the best ways of using coal in the game. I love this little game. This came out of nowhere for me. I played it at my friend's local, my gaming club that I'm part of. And the guy who introduced me to this game just brought it in, and we played it, and I absolutely adored it. So much so I immediately got home and I bought it. I think it's a lovely game, and is very, very cheap to pick up from certain places. Because sadly it hasn't got this. This is another one that falls under the category of needs more love. Would I call this a family game? The setup's a bit of a pain, but if you can deal with the setup, then yeah, I think this is a good family game. There's a bit of strategy to it, particularly with taking the sheep. But other than that, I think it's a perfectly good family game. Plays in about an hour, on the outside. Maybe a little longer for a first-time game for everyone, but mostly it's an hour. It's a great wee game, and I highly recommend it. This is Flux, more specifically, for the purposes of this set of reviews. This is Monty Python Fluxx. You can get sort of straight on Flux, or there are a myriad of sort of themed decks that you can get. I'm not sure if mixing the decks would be a particularly good idea, just due to the nature of it. But yeah, the game itself is relatively simple, he says. At the beginning, you have the basic rules there in the centre along with a deck of cards. And it says there, to begin, shuffle up the deck, deal 3 cards to each player, which we have. Choose someone to go first, keep this card on the table. And essentially what the rules are you pick up a card and you play a card. In that respect, it's very similar to Love Letter. So I've got a 2-player game set up here. And for the purposes of the camera, I have the cards out. Now, keepers, when you play a keeper, you play it in front of you, just in front of you. These are the cards that you need to win the game. And actions can be played. Actions are played into you play them, then discard them. And goals go in the centre, like that. And goals provide the win conditions. In this case, for the cave of Kerbanog, you win if you have the Killer Rabbit and the Beast of Arg on the table in front of you, which are 2 keeper cards. There are also rule changes, new rule cards, which take over here, and that can change the game completely, hence the name Flux. The game's constantly changing, and if someone puts in another goal, that it replaces this goal. So the win condition is constantly changing. The rules to get to the win condition are constantly changing. And what you may think is a good hand may end up to be completely pointless. To the point where you might have set yourself up where you think you've got a winning hand and someone changes the rules or changes the goals and you're left with nothing. If, however, someone places a goal in the centre, even if it's not your turn, if you, for example, if you're one of the other players and you happen to have Killer Rabbit and the Beast of Arg on the table in front of you, you would win automatically. So it would be rather foolish to play that card. So what you do is you pick up a card. And for the purposes of this, my player is going to play Robin's Minstrels in front of them. And they are going to play that goal. So now we have... And game would continue onward and onward until someone has the magic combination of keepers in front of them and the goal. There are also creepers, which are kind of anti-keeper cards. These cards, while you play them like creepers, you have to put them down in front of you the moment you pick them up. And you can't win while you have those cards in front of you unless there's a rule change or a particular goal that lets you do so. But there are action cards that let you move creepers or discard creepers, so they're not completely debilitating. What do I think? I like Flux. I enjoy this. I got this from my friend Phil, who is part of the group that I play RPGs with on a Monday night on Pair of Geeks 2. And it's a fun game. It's a silly game. It's one of those games you do not take seriously. And it's a game you can't really put any sort of strategy to because, let's be honest, there is no strategy to Flux. All you can hope is you can get that dynamic combination of cards that'll help you win. What you guess you're really hoping for is to have enough keepers down in front of you that you end up with a particular goal card in your hand that matches a couple of your keepers, and when it's your turn, you can just go bang, change the goal and win the game. I say reasonably quick. Games can be really quick or really long depending on the combinations of the goals, the rules, what keepers you have in front of you. It's all in flux. It's a good wee game though, and a lot of fun. If you're looking for something quite simple and straightforward and not particularly heavy, any version of Flux is good. The one I have is Monty Python. There's a whole load of others. There's some Star Trek ones. And they're worth seeking out. This is The Princess Bride. I hate to kill you. This is a very, very quick two-player. It's a dueling game. At the start of the game, you pick two out of four characters. The characters available are Inigo Montoya, Count Rugen, the Man in Black, and Prince Humperdinck. You pick any two. For this, I've decided to have the Man in Black and Prince Humperdinck. You have a wound card, and every wound you take, you'll rotate anti-clockwise so that the number of wounds is always in the top left corner. And then finally, 1, and then, death. You can see here, there's also quotes that you can use when you are fighting against certain ones. The only ones that the Man in Black in the film goes up against, because it's all taken from the film, is the wonderful duel with Inigo Montoya, which of course gives the game its name. You'll see my decent fellow, I hate to kill you. You see my decent fellow, I hate to die. Or in this case, the Man in Black versus the Prince, when Humperdinck says to the pain, and the Man in Black says wrong, no, to the pain. Brilliant scene. And also on the reverse, it gives you how many of each of your cards there are. I'm having to do this with one hand again. So, on your turn is fairly simple, actually. You each get 2 yellow, 2 orange, and 2 red die. There are swords only on 3 of the sides. The yellows have just 1s on them. The orange has 1s and a couple of 1s and a 2, and the reds have a couple of 2s and a 1. So what you do is you will roll, and you count up the swords. Now in this case there's 2 swords for the man in black and 1 sword for Humperdinck. Then you will play one of your cards. So he's going to play that card. Doesn't really want that. He wants that one. So after choosing, you will reveal your cards simultaneously, in which case they've both decided to re-roll one of their die. So he re-rolls that one, and that's been a bit of a fail on him. So Humperdinck loses. Those 2 cards are discarded. There are ways to get the cards back, but for the most part they're discarded. Humperdinck will go down 1 wound, and the man in black has to dump one of his swords that has a sword icon showing. So he can't dump that die because it doesn't have a sword on it. But he'll dump that one because there's no less loss. And battle begins again. And you keep going until someone's down to 0 wounds. It's very, very simple, and really there's not much in the game in terms of strategy or any sort of any kind of sort of breadth of strategy, but it's a good little game. Fiona got me this game last year at Tabletop Scotland, and I love it. It's not a heavy game. It's a very simple game. It is a 2-player game, and the only reason I didn't put it in my 2-player list is because I knew I was doing this list of film and TV tie-ins, and I felt it was more appropriate for this one. Simple game, a lot of fun, great to play. I recommend it. This is Star Trek 5-Year Mission, which takes the notion of games like Yahtzee, Roll For It, which I've done in a previous video, and just ups the ante. This is a 3 to 7 player game. So I've set out 3 players, and I've used the next generation. These are double-sided. So you can have the original crew, for example, the 4. You either are Scotty or Geordie LaForge. It's a fairly simple game-ish. You see the Enterprise there. That board is also double-sided. The Enterprise from the original series is on the other side, but there's also this damage track. And this damage track serves 2 functions. Not only does it deal with how much damage the Enterprise is taking, it also explains what card you can take. At the moment, I could take a standard blue or a yellow or a red if I'm feeling brave. But if it takes damage to the point of there, then at a minimum, I can only take a yellow. And if it gets up to there, at a minimum, I can only take a red. And if it goes beyond there, then, the Enterprise is destroyed and we lose the game. That is one of 2 ways to lose the game. Essentially, all these cards are missions. And if you fail 5 missions, Regardless of the level of difficulty, if you fail 5 missions, a game is over and you lose. It is a cooperative dice game. So, starting on your turn, starting with whoever is captain, followed by the number 2, number 3, which is why these are all numbered, which is why these other ones aren't used. Only for a 3-player game, only boards 1, 2, and 3. And just to say that 1, it's either Picard or Kirk. With here, it's either Riker or Spock. What you will do is, first of all, you have to pick a mission. At the moment, we have no other impediments, so we're going to pick a blue mission. There's already one out. There's always one blue mission out, which is to boldly go. And again, this card is double-sided, depending on which area you're playing. I think, hopefully you can see right in the corner there, right there, is the symbol for the Next Gen Enterprise. Whereas here, the symbol for the original series Enterprise is shown. And the reason for that is the cards will either show the old Enterprise or the Next Gen. Sometimes both, and this dictates what cards are used depending on which era you're playing in. You don't play with all the yellow and red cards, you only play with specifics. So I'm going to pick a blue. Now, this one has a Starfleet insignia on it. This is a mission point. If we get that one, that's 1 point we've gotten. In order to do that, I need to roll 2 reds that are 4 or more. This one just means I need to get a 5 or more on my blue. I start the game with 5 dice, 2 reds, 2 blues, and a yellow. If you're playing a 3 or 4 player game, not only does everyone get that, there's also an extra 1 of each colour in the dice pool. So I roll my dice. And that's not a bad roll. In fact, I'm able to deal with that. So that says we've got 1. If you play at the lowest level, you need 10 missions, including 1 of each colour. And I'm also able to get that. So that can go away. That can get dumped. And it's important to dump these. There's nothing else I can do, so that's my turnover. It's important to dump them. And the reason it's important to dump them is that if you can only have 3 of each colour out on the board. If you get a 4th, without completing any of the other 3, if you get a 4th of that colour, then the sort of oldest mission is immediately failed, and that goes towards your failing. So you're constantly making sure that you're clearing the decks. Each character also has a special ability. During replenishment, you may take 1 extra die from the pool if 1 is available. Replenishment happens at the start of your turn. So at the start of my next turn, I will be able to pull any. Now, usually I can only take back up to 5 dice, but because it's Picard, I could take a 6th die of any colour I want, and I don't have to go back to 2 blue, 2 red, and a yellow. I can get any combination I like, providing the dice are there. What dice I would want to pick up will be largely dependent on what dice are there and what dice are needed. I just picked out this red one here, which is Deep Space Nine. This is an interesting one. This white one means you need a 4 of any colour. This one here requires you to have a yellow 1 and a red of 4 or more, but they must be put in together. One of the things about this being a cooperative game is, let's say, let's pull out this next blue one. Let's say Beverly here. She has the 1, but doesn't have a 4 or more in her blue. She can leave that 1 there for the next player to try and get the 4 or more. But if they're in a box like that, then they must be gotten together by the same player. You can't have one player do one of them and one player do the other. There are also cards that require this timer to be used, and if you do not complete the card before the timer runs out, then you fail the mission. There are also cards with the Federation symbol on them, and such as that one. And what that means is that has to be completed before you can complete any others. Even if I did have the dice to deal with Deep Space Nine, I've got to deal with that one first, which adds an extra complication. Some of the cards provide you with an effect as well. Can give you extra dice, can let you lower a die or raise a die score, let you heal a wound. Because if cards cause you to be injured, then your injuries are done by dice. If Riker has to take one injury, then one of his unused die has to go in there, and he can't get it out. That's it. It's there until he's healed. He can heal using the blue die, or the doctor can heal them, which is great, and you get your die back in your pool again. Game continues until you either complete the missions, or game ends because you've either destroyed the Enterprise or you've failed 5 missions. I love this game. I have beaten this game all of twice. All of twice in the number of times that I've been involved in games of it. It's a tough game to beat, like any co-op tends to be. But oh my God, is it fun. When you get right down to it, it's an upgraded version of Roll for it. It's an upgraded version of Yahtzee. You're looking for dice combinations and trying to get points off of them. And one could argue that the theme is fairly inconsequential. I'm not too bothered by people who say that, because I just think the theme works superbly. I think it's really well done. If you are a trekker, or you like sort of dice pool games, Star Trek 5-Year Mission is definitely worth a look. This is QI-XL, the board game. This is, it says 3 to 6 players, but quite frankly, I suppose you could have more than that if you can split people into teams. I have had to have one rule clarification. I'll get to why that's important later. You will notice that button. That is the klaxon from the TV show. I have not put batteries in that because I've heard it's extremely loud, and I don't want to upset the neighbours. Plus, I didn't feel it was necessary for the review, but it's there anyway. So I've got 3 people down here. So, you roll your 3 dice, the red, white, and blue. The white determines the number of spaces that you move. So I will take my black, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then that is the colour of the question book I would look up So I'm on a yellow, so I would look on the yellow question. And then I would look at question based on the red, white, and blue score. So in this case, I would be looking up question 644. This is not very easy to do with one hand. So most of the questions, about all of them, are either multiple choice or true or false. So, trying not to show anyone else. So the question is, according to Pliny the Elder, you should collect the soil under your right foot immediately upon hearing the first cuckoo of spring. The soil would be then effective against what? And you would say, is it curses, fleas, or infertility? You would ask that question. Everyone would give their answer. Anyone who answered fleas would move forward 3 spaces. Anyone who answered curses wouldn't move at all. Anyone who answered infertility would get the klaxon, and they would move backwards 7 spaces. There is a rule about a player, upon hearing the person to their right, the person before them giving what they think is a wrong answer, they can hit the klaxon and give what they think is the right answer, and one of them is going to get moved back, either the one getting it wrong or the one who got it called out for getting it wrong, or the one who wrongly called out a right answer. Game continues that way. Once you've asked a question, question's been answered, dice go to the next player in clockwise order, and game will go round and round until someone gets either to there, which is the game end in the positive numbers, you can see all the pluses, in which case they win immediately, or the game end here at the negative numbers, in which case, in this example, the person with the lowest minus score, which would be white in this case, would win, or dare I say in that situation, it would be green with just 1 point, which to an extent emulates the television show. Now, couple of things. First of all, I have not played this game yet. I got this as a present from my nephew, which was very nice of him. I've not played it yet, simply because this is one of those break it out family games. I would probably play at the festive season or somebody's birthday or something. It's not a game that I would break out as a regular thing. Two, the rules, which are just 2 sides of an A4, are unbelievably vague on a couple of things, particularly the win condition. It's not a perfect set of rules. And I did actually have to clarify the win condition. So, having not played the game, what do I think of it? I think as quiz games go, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to play. I think, unfortunately, it suffers in a sense from calling itself QI, because part of the fun of that particular show is the wonderfully creative answers that people come up with, whereas this comes down to just multiple choice or true or false. understandable, but it's a little different from the television show in that respect. But it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Is it better than other quiz games? I don't know. This is probably one I will come back to and do a full review of. But the game looks fun, and for a bit of mindless quizzery, I think it would be a good game for the family. If you're looking for something a little different from, say, Trivial Pursuit, this could be the one for you.